Sure.
Hi. So I'm going to show you how to recycle clay in the studio. The issue is that when you've been working with clay and you've let it get too dry, so it's cracking like that, or if you've got a piece that you made, this one's leather hard or a little bit wetter, and I'm going to squish it. And now, if I try to work with it again, it's really too dry to work with. Now, ideally, we keep the clay wrapped up in plastic really well and we keep it wet. And that way, if we have little bits, like here's some bits from the other day, and you can see that they're cracking a little bit, I can re-wedge this clay back together. That's ideal. That isn't always possible. So another option, if you get your clay too wet like this, you may want to just get a wet towel, a wet washcloth, and then wrap it, I didn't have enough water, but get the washcloth totally wet, wrap it up, and then put it back in the plastic or a plastic bag and leave it there. Now be careful, you don't want this to mold, so you don't want to leave that clay in the plastic for, days and days. But you can leave it there for a day maybe and check on it. It should have absorbed some of that water as long as it wasn't too big. Now, the other option is, if you let your work get bone dry, all the way dry, you can slake it. So I have a lot of recycle because I've been doing this for longer than you. This is more annoying. I would recommend trying not to let it get too dry. But sometimes stuff gets to bone dry and it breaks, and that's not garbage at that point. That is recyclable clay. So what you're going to do is you're going to slake it, right? You know how to slake because that's how we made slip. You're going to put water, you're going to put bone dry in water. Remember that putting wet clay in water does not slake, it's only bone dry. So I've got this stuff that I slaked yesterday. It's really helpful if it's in small pieces. So if you let a solid piece of clay dry out, I would break it up before you slake it. It just slakes a little faster. So this is stuff that I had been collecting for weeks probably, and I'm gonna shape it up. It isn't pretty. And you can see it's a messy process, but I'm going to shape it into this arch shape, and then I'm going to let it dry. Now, depending where you are, the drying may take more or less time. So if you leave this outside on the sun, I sometimes dry them out in the sun, be really careful because a bright sunny day in Yakima or Central Washington will dry this stuff up faster than you want it to dry. Faster than if you were inside. It doesn't matter how fast it dries. If I'm leaving this inside in my studio, I probably will arch it. This is an arch I've made. I'll arch it in the morning and then I'll take it apart, it'll be ready to wedge the next day. If a lot of people are walking through and I've got a lot of breeze, it might be a little faster than that. I might arch it all day and then cover it lightly with plastic so it doesn't get dry just on the outside. If it's in the sun, you probably want to check it in an hour or so. Like I said, you won't waste anything in this studio because you can recycle it and reuse it. But the recycling process after it's bone dry is kind of annoying. So I'd recommend you try to do less of that. More of the wrapped in plastic, keeping it wet. In plastic, you can also squirt it with a little bit of water if it seems to be getting too dry, but keep an eye on the water. You don't want too much water or the surface will get really sticky, all right? And as with all things, practice and it'll get better, easier.